Hey YouTube, Haig here. Here's a long-range outlook at Pacific Northwest weather for the month of November. Um, and could we get low elevation snowfall for the Pacific Northwest? We're probably the only places in North America that really want heavy snow compared to the places that regularly get it. So when it comes to that, this is what everybody wants to know mainly. If you're in Seattle, Vancouver, Nanaimo, could we be seeing snow this November? I actually think towards the end of the month, I'm starting to see a pattern that I actually like. But it's going to depend if that Arctic air is going to head eastward too quickly. So we'll take a look at things here. We're taking a look at the GFS example extended. We're looking at the control run because it gives me the better picture long term with what may happen. So we're taking a look here at 2 meter temperature anomalies, and I'll walk you through later in November. We're now on to around November 17th to November 24th. And you can start to see that single here out in Western Canada of below normal temperatures. We can see now that Vancouver Island here on this model covered in an anomaly of 5 to 6 degree below normal temperature for this time frame. This is between the 23rd of November to the 30th of November, roughly. And if you minus 5 to 6 degrees off our normal daytime high for places like Vancouver, Nanaimo, Victoria, you end up with sub-zero freezing temperatures for a daytime high. So our average for November, end of November, should be sitting at 6. And according to this map, as we go through the end of the month, last couple weeks of November, we're starting to see anomalies of 5 degrees below normal, which will be what we want to have it at, and that will correspond to temperatures around 1 or 2 degrees in the afternoon and colder, obviously, for your overnight lows. That's what you want to see as a starting point. And notice up above here that we are actually really warming up the Gulf of Alaska area, like where I'm going to put the circle here. Notice that we're really warming up the air up in Alaska as we end off the month of November here. Much warmer air up in the Gulf of Alaska, much colder air being dislodged down to the west. So that is the type of pattern that you want to see if you're going to start talking low elevation snowfall. Now that is just a GFS example going out. I've walked you out here about 28 days into the future. There is a lot of time for that single to change. I can walk you out even further. We're now going out 35 days into the future. We're now getting into the week 1s and 2s of December, and you can see that cold air eventually marches on eastward. So eastern side of Canada, your shot of cold air may be December, but there's also a little bit of cold air actually coming in short term, but it's nothing really major to write home about, staying up towards the Great Lakes region according to GFS. If I take you look the ECMWF examples, and we're going to walk you through the month of November. And as we progress through the month of November, once again, we're now seeing these temperatures out west being well below normal and temperatures up north being well above normal. So all that cold air up here is coming somewhere. All the warm air is showing up in the northern latitudes. So right here, all of that cold air is normally up here. It's all down here out down in the south. That's something we want to see. That means that colder air is being displaced further south. Maybe the polar vortex, something going on with that. But we can see what we're gaining right away here is that as we walk on through November, we're starting to see that temperature anomaly in the west being below normal, and that is the start that you want to see if you want to be starting to be concerned about any snowfall. We can also take a look at our height anomalies here. And we'll take a look at our upper height anomalies. And I'll walk you once again through the month of November. So we can see lots of troughing over the Pacific Northwest denoted in the purples and blues. These are areas of low pressure. Ridges are areas of oranges and brighter and warmer colors of high pressure. So I'm going to just walk you through as we go through the ECMWF later throughout the month of November. Where was I finding it earlier? We start to see more of that region up in a Gulf, up into the Aleutian Islands, and that sends these troughs through the interior. Like right here, this is going later on in December actually, but it's showing real cold. That would be Arctic air. That would potentially bring some chances to sea level, but the main pattern does show this region up into Aleutian Islands as we move forward through the next 30 days. This is 41 days out, but the other model we're looking at shows that happening even sooner. So there's other things we can take a look at. For an example, if you want snow in the Pacific Northwest, we can take a look at our teleconnection patterns, and we can go into a Pacific Northwest oscillation. And as we walk on through the end of the month, we start to go more towards that negative territory here in the Pacific Northwest oscillation. And the negative territory normally results in colder temperatures in the Pacific Northwest. So you can even ask the AI that, and it knows that already. So if I actually ask the AI that question, what the PNA, because I already know the answer to this, I'm just going to show you guys just for the heck of it. Ask it what its impacts are in Pacific. So if we have a negative PNA pattern, you even learn here. I already know the answer. This favors colder temperatures out west. So if you can see the negative North American PNA pattern typically impacts on the Pacific Northwest weather. Cooler temperatures in the Pacific Northwest is often cooler than average during a negative PNA pattern. As we go through the month of November, we're actually seeing the main one, and most of these little example members, the main is getting us down towards a -1, some minus down into -2. So we're seeing that weak negative North American oscillation pattern as we walk our way through the month of November towards the end. And if we even look at the other long range model, we can check a look at that. It's showing up on that as well. Let's take a look at the artificial intelligence. This is actually near the 13th to 17th time frame. I mean, like, we have considerable agreement with a departure to the negative territory towards the end of the month for the same area. If we take a look at the GFS extended example, once again, as we get midway through the month, this is around the 16th Sunday, the weekend, 18th, the 20th, the 22nd, we see that negative PNA pattern. So once again, that negative PNA pattern often brings colder than the normal temperatures to the Pacific Northwest, weather conditions, lower snow levels, maybe atmospheric rivers, maybe Arctic outbreaks. I mean, with a negative PNA pattern, you can get anything out of this pattern, but it does generally favor colder temperatures out west, Western Canada, warmer temperatures out east, Ontario. So that is the reason why we have some hope, I guess, if you want to see some snow in the Pacific Northwest later in the month. Now, this does not mean that this will happen. You can see the PNA goes right back up as we go through December, and that will likely bring a return to normal conditions. But for the short little period, middle of the month, there is a period where it gets negative, and we could see some colder weather systems, lower snow levels, maybe an Arctic outbreak. It's too early to tell. We do have some singles in the Pacific Northwest for snow now later on the month. And even when I was looking earlier this morning, if you look at if I look at some charts here, I'm going to just show you Nanaimo Airport where I live, and we'll see what it looks like. This is going 20 days out, so this is just a forecast fantasy, so don't get your hopes up. But if I go into metrograms here, and I go into the long range GFS, or even the ECMWF, and we max out total snow, look at the end of this here. This is basically the whole month of November accumulative snow. We have all the different weather models down here, and when you see it, all these purples here, it means you're starting to lock into agreement. So if we walk ourselves out, this is this is about November 25th. We do start to see a couple centimeters may be possible at Nanaimo Airport. That's like December 25th. But as we go further out into early December, end of the month, it's now showing us getting up to 60 centimeters of snowfall. The on the control runs, but even on the main example, we're showing 40 centimeters mountain at Nanaimo Airport. So it's really showing the uptick in snow towards the end of the month. However, it is over 20 days out and can change. And taking a look at GFS example, exactly the exact same thing. If you take a look at that thing, we'd put it to total snowfall, and once again, we have snow increasing towards the end of the month for the Nanaimo Airport. Now, this is just 20 days out in advance. This would be a late November to early December Arctic air outbreak. Timing this down is impossible right now, but because we see the North American oscillation going negative, that should create a better troughing pattern up into Aleutian Islands. So, I mean, we really want this ridge of high pressure to line up perfectly with an area of low pressure offshore of Vancouver Island at the same time to get snow down to sea level. So if we take a look at the long range here, I just want to take a look at another product here that's helpful for forecasting snow far out. You want to be looking at something like, let me find it. You want to be looking at something like, we'll go into oceanic. You really want to pay attention to the Gulf of Alaska, because the Gulf of Alaska is where these Arctic air masses that affect BC and the South Coast originate from. So we're going to take a look very closely towards the middle of the month at the Gulf of Alaska. So cooler temperatures there. We have lots of troughing in the area. Let me just put it to heights because it works better if you look at heights and maybe even 7-day averages. So huge troughing on the Pacific Northwest. That's going to keep us wet and rainy at different intervals throughout the first 2 weeks of November. Very, very, very active troughing pattern. When you see this purple out here, these are areas of heavy troughing, areas of low pressure in this prime area of forming. So you're going to see a lot of systems making its aim in the first couple of weeks at the Pacific Northwest. So in the first couple of weeks, a lot of the active jet stream, a lot of different weather systems taking aim at coastal British Columbia through the first couple of weeks of November. But then we lose that troughing pattern and we start to gain a ridge of high pressure up to the Aleutian Islands. And that's what you want to see to get the jet stream to start to send some of its colder air down with it. So when you get that region up into Aleutian Islands, it now helps to pull some of that colder air down into BC. And you can even see it showing up really, really well if you look at your 850 temperature anomalies for the exact same time frame. We start to introduce more of these blues coming down right here. And a lot of really, really mild air towards the end of the month. There's a lot of really, really mild air up in the Gulf of Alaska because of high latitude region. A lot of cold air down to the south towards the Pacific Northwest and the British Columbia interior. So this is the pattern you need to see for Arctic air. Look what we have right now. This is what we are in currently. It's completely different. We have all the cold air right now going into the next 15 days, all set it up in the Gulf of Alaska. But towards the end of the month, look at all that. It comes all the way down, and it hits towards the south coast of BC. It locks on, and you can even take a look at your surface temperature anomaly. These are temperatures you'll find down at sea level, and you can see the cold air starts up in the Aleutian Islands. You get that ridge that I was talking about, and it dislodges all that cold air. Look at it come down into British Columbia at the end of the month, and then look at how mild Alaska is at the end of the month. All that cold air that normally sits up in Alaska on this model, that's up in this region, all that Arctic air is all the way down in the BC. So that is exactly what you want to see if you want to get snowfall down to this lower elevations. But again, we're talking half a month, the whole month has to go through with this pattern continuing to show what we are showing. And we can even go out, pardon me, and take a look again at some other things like our heights, like I was mentioning, we want to have a nice ridge in Alaska. I want to see a good example of some offshore low pressure systems with the ridge up north. So right here, we have a trough of low pressure just south of Vancouver Island, Washington State, and that's even if it's a bit south like that, that favors us. We want to have that ridge, as I mentioned, that ridge of high pressure building up over the Aleutian Islands of Alaska, the ridge of high pressure. This sends the jet stream piping downwards, sending all of its cold airward. And then we have this area of low pressure just hanging offshore of Vancouver Island. This would be what you want because this will provide the moisture, the cold air coming down from Alaska, the trough of low pressure offshore of Vancouver Island, bringing in the moisture. This is what you want to start to see snow at sea level. We're looking out around November 28th or 24th, 2005 at this point. So this is a mighty, mighty long ways out into the future. But this is an ideal pattern for sea effect, for snow down to sea level for places like Nanaimo, Vancouver, Victoria, Seattle. You want to have the trough down to the south, the ridge up in the Aleutians, and we can walk it forward. We're now going in towards the very last week of this is now 26th of November. Well-established ridge up in the Aleutian Islands. Look at this troughing pattern that we're just that's just trying to hang on just down to the south. Expect systems trying to come up from the south being put into the Arctic air mass at that time. This is the best case scenario for low elevation. So just look how strong that trough is and that ridge is at the exact same time coming down. The trough coming down, affecting Vancouver Island, the ridge building up into Aleutian Island, sending all the cold air into British Columbia during that time frame. And then we finally return. We see a weaker ridge single as we go through December, but we start to into a ridge over the Pacific Northwest as we head in. This is looking in through December 5th. This is December 5th. We start to see this ridge of high pressure now in the Pacific Northwest here, and this will dry us out and give us a milder temperature trend. When you get into these oranges, you get drier, milder conditions. Troughs of low pressure or the blues where you get weather and rainier weather out on the Pacific Northwest. So if I walk back to where we are now, we are dealing with a lot of troughing in the Gulf of Alaska. So an active wet weather pattern is ongoing for coastal British Columbia. Some pretty intense troughing in the Gulf of Alaska. And as you can see, I've walked you out to November 12th here. There's no signs of any kind of ridging in November 12th, November 14th, November 15th, November 16th, November 17th. November 19th, but once you get into November 20th, you start to introduce those ridges of high pressure, those bright oranges up towards the Aleutian Islands. That sends a trough of low pressure downward towards Vancouver Island with cold air, and the jet stream is literally at this point. This is the perfect scenario. You got area of high pressure, and I can't continue to talk about this more because this is the most important setup to get snow in the Pacific Northwest. High pressure, the air is going to rotate counterclockwise. So clockwise rather. So it's going to send all of its cold air into the direction of my arrow. The trough of low pressure, the air is going to start to go in up the opposite way. It brings in air from the south. So it goes counterclockwise around areas of low pressure. So that was bringing up moisture from the south. We have cold air coming in from the north with the ridge of high pressure position there, because areas of high pressure, the ridge is going clockwise. That means you can see that this will literally send the cold air from Alaska and push it down towards BC and the BC South Coast. But it depends on how far it gets, and you can easily, as I mentioned, can see this in our anomaly. Let's take a look here at the northern hemisphere, and we'll take a look here at our temperature anomalies once more, and we'll go out and towards the end of November, and you can see this temperature anomaly. You can see here where it is the coldest temperatures likely set up for Western Canada according to this model. End of the month, the Pacific Northwest, Western Canada. This is where the coldest of coldest air. And look it up towards the polar vortex would normally be way up here. And look at the polar regions. You're dealing with extremely milder conditions up in the polar regions at the end of the month. The cold air is being displaced southwards, which is would be a textbook Arctic air outbreak. But It is 20 days into the future. We have to make more videos. We have to continue to watch this pattern. This is about 20 to 30 days out. This is not a forecast. This is just a fantasy. We can wake up in the next 5 days and it will be scrapped and you won't even have this pattern. But this is the pattern you want to see for colder air. Chances of lower elevation snow for places like Vancouver, Comox, Campbell River, the lower mainland, Abbotsford, Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon. This is the favorable pattern. So get ready. It's going to be a very interesting November. Definitely going to start off wet and mild for the Pacific Northwest and start to slowly trend colder towards the end of the month. So that's what's going to happen for sure. Just how much colder, if there's going to be a threat of low elevation snow, we can't really tell. We just know that the models are singling and favoring Western Canada to see a period of below normal temperatures towards the end of the month. And I'm liking what I see as far as our area in the Pacific Northwest. And thanks for watching.